Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) today, Tuesday, reopened the electoral process in Rivers State with collation of results from 17 local government areas for the governorship and state parliamentary elections. The Commission had last month suspended the process, citing reports of disruption and violence that affected the voting and the collation of results. The outcome of the ongoing exercise in terms of margin of lead would be determined if a supplementary election would hold in other local government areas. Now, it is mainly a battle between the PDP and the APC, backed by, or the AAC, backed by the APC. There seems to be a confusion there. Now, joining me in the studio again is Adeni Kunu. He is a public affairs analyst. And, of course, we have Obi Ajegbo. She is a legal practitioner. It's good to have you both in the studio. Thank you so much. So, before we start this conversation, we want to quickly go to a report from Joshua Rogers, a correspondent from Port Harcourt, who was at the Collation Center, and this is what he had to say.
Okay, after the stakeholders meeting, the main exercise is starting today. That is the resumption of collection of results for the governorship and some state assembly seats. Remember that the statement that was released by INEC on the March 23rd thereabouts says that they have results from 17 local government areas and that assembly seats for 21 have already been collected. And Rivers State is supposed to have 32 assembly members. So the other assembly members will be announced after the results have been collected. And the INEC has just released the guidelines for the activities. They said the exercise will start from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. And then it's going to run from today to Friday. However, wherever there are no results, supplementary elections will now be held on the 13th of April. So far, INEC has admitted that there are no results in two local government areas. One is Abua Odua local government area, where he says materials could not be distributed because of violence, and another is Bokana local government area, where INEC says materials were distributed, election began, but there was no result because violence erupted and the result sheets were all torn. So these two local government areas look more like the local government areas where supplementary elections will hold. Then there is another local government area, Oda West, where out of hundreds of polling units, they only have results from 24 polling units. Okay, if you are coming from, there is a stretch of that Abba Road, an 8-lane road that has already been blocked from the DRA Junction to Waterline Junction. For those who know the road very well, it's always a busy road. It's the Port Harcourt Abba Express Road. It's been blocked to motorists. And then there is unprecedented presence of security personnel comprising basically of the police and DSS. And inside the INEC head office where they have the state collation centers, you have also the presence of security agencies, including a customs, the fire service truck right here from the Federal Fire Service, waiting for any form of emergency to tackle. So if you are coming into the INEC office, if you don't have real business to do inside, you will not be allowed to enter. As a matter of fact, by this morning when we came as journalists, we had been accredited to cover elections for the presidential and governorship. But today, you have to be re-accredited. You have to be given a new accreditation card that supersedes the one that was given previously, meaning that those who are coming in as observers today, those who are coming in as journalists today, and even INEC officials have to be identified again.
So that's Joshua Rogers, he's our correspondent who was speaking from Port Harcourt, giving us a fair idea of what was going on there in the Collation Center at INEC office in Port Harcourt. So INEC is not leaving any stones unturned this time around. They did not want to hear any stories. So there was a re-accreditation. Like he said, if you had no business at the Collation Center, you were not allowed in. Now, he has said that INEC has said they will continue this collation process from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day till Friday. And where there are no results, they will have supplementary elections. Now, two local governments, which are Gokana and Aboadua local governments, they will definitely have elections because there were no results. And one of those local government areas, results sheets were being torn, for some reasons or the other. But again, I always like to ask why Rivers State has to be the heated part of the country so bad that we have, I mean, I remember in 2016 we had reruns, we had reruns. I mean, it's becoming like a norm in Rivers State. And now we're having the coalition process. Rivers APC has said that they don't believe in INEC and they don't think that this process is actually authentic and it's anything they can stand for. What's your take on that one?
Firstly, to start off with, what is happening in Rivers just lays credence to my belief that our leaders have a myopic reasoning.
How do you mean?
They are busy fighting in Rivers because of the gains of crude oil, forgetting that crude oil is becoming a dinosaur. And this is not what they should be looking for. They should be looking futuristic. Rivers, what else can you get now to replace crude oil? So that is why it's like the honey pot and everybody wants to partake of it. And how do you partake of it? To win the election. And that shows a very selfish, self-orientated thing. Because you're winning the election. Are you winning the election because you want to help the masses or you want to help a handful? And with all these things going on, I can only get to the conclusion that they just want to help themselves, which is very sad. Because all other states have forgotten they had elections.
Interesting. Kunu, I spoke with an APC chieftain yesterday. I want us to play that clip quickly. Prince Will spoke about the issue of INEC losing its credibility in River State's election, hence the reason why, whatever be the outcome, they will not necessarily accept it. I want us to go to that clip quickly from Prince Will, and then, of course, Kunu, I'm going to take your reaction to it. Guys, let's have it.
I mean, I've already said it. I was in the newspapers today saying that whatever the results of the election will be, they won't be credible. Because between the time when the election was suspended and now, nobody knows what's happening to sensitive material. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows how you move from 7 announced to 17. So the credibility of the election, as far as I'm concerned, has already been diluted. Standing by the election, even if they declare the AAC candidate, I expect PDP to also be unhappy about it. So it's not about who wins. It's just about the credibility and the transparency of the process. So I can be, I guess, categorical in saying that we will not be standing by whatever they come out with.
What do you think?
Well, you expect people who don't understand that institutions of government have jobs to do to speak the way he has just spoken. I expect that a party who could not conduct its own primaries and be adjudged credible should not even exhibit the kind of attitude he's exhibiting on international television. The reason I've said that is very clear. You were taken to the court, and the court threw out whatever position you had wanted to hold because your primary was terribly done. I think people who find themselves in such situations should be sober enough not to speak the way he has spoken, because the stake that they intend to even claim is very minimal as far as these elections are concerned. So when AAC, the newborn of very complex identity and complicated posture, is speaking, I think very well that the APC should not talk. In Rivers State, I mean. That said, he mentioned something that actually got me smiling without opening my mouth, that they didn't know where INEC kept the materials. Must you be told where the sensitive materials are kept? What's your business with that? In the first place, it is INEC's business to ensure that sensitive materials are kept. INEC is operating on behalf of Nigerians in trust and allegiance to the constitution of the country that is actually the mother that gave birth to it. So you, the party chairperson, should not know a thing about where sensitive materials are. Because if you look at it, it is even the people of Rivers State, including the police and the army, that prevented the elections from being peaceful. So it is not INEC. INEC did what it was meant to do according to the provisions of the law, but the people of, it may not be him, but his agents were part of those who disrupted the elections, including the police and the army. Evidence everywhere.
Well, it's been a back and forth between
excuse me, at times
it's been a pointing of fingers. It was
there should not, in fact, they should chop off fingers are being pointed, because it is very, very evident the people who did what they did. It is funny, you know, it became so ridiculous. And I don't like that they make us laughing stock. We are tired of operating circles for the international community to enter without paying anything and be dancing around and laughing themselves to fall over the chairs. Now, the army said after the elections that one of their own, they were actually overwhelmed by the army, overwhelmed in an election. Such ridicule of the nation's gallant officers that are dealing with terrorists than an election. In the first place, I saw the video. INEC said, and I'm quoting Professor Mahmoud Yakub, that they will tell the security operatives the extent to which they can participate in the elections. And I also saw very clearly in the eyes of the world that the police officers wanted to gain entry to the collation center. What is the business of the army, rather? What is the business of the army at the collation centers?
I mean, these will remain questions that need to be answered.
The answer is what I've given.
Okay, Obi, before we go, because of course this collation process is ongoing until Friday, so all eyes are on River State. Some people have thrown their hands up in the air and said, well, it's already, you know, mad, it's not credible, so we do not want to partake of it. But do we see River State changing anytime soon when it comes to elections? Quickly, before we go.
No.
Why so negative?
So far as it's still the honeycomb, there would always be convoluted interest there. And because of the convoluted interest, everyone will want to outplay each other. And to be more interesting next election, because Wike's 2 terms would have finished. Let's assume he wins, and it will be a fresh person. So it will really be a battle.
Well, we want to say thank you to you, Adeni Ikunu, for speaking with us, and of course, Barrister Obi Ajegbo, thank you so much. Unfortunately, in the case of River State, we really always are at a loss for words, but we'll keep our fingers crossed and keep watching what's happening in River State. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping things up with My Take.
Police force is commissioned to serve and protect, but what obtains more often than not is the complete opposite. There is a certain amount of intimidation and fear when a member of a SAS operative approaches you. These days, those fears are not completely unfounded. The Special Anti-Robbery Squad was founded by retired Commissioner of Police in Denver in 1992. It soon became imperative that the fight against robbery, being one of the bane of the existence of the Nigerian police force, was of great importance. That decision soon evolved into one of the most popular yet faceless group of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, also known as SAS. Their main task was to monitor radio communications of police operatives and swing into action as soon as robbery is reported.
The first thing we have done is to prepare what is called Standard Operational Procedure, SOP. Now, under this SOP, we clearly explain the guidelines on the operations of federal SAS. Under Section 4 of the Police Act, we have a statutory duty to protect life and property, to investigate cases, to apprehend the criminals, to enforce law and order, to control traffic where necessary, and any other duty as assigned by Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief. We have Police Act and regulations as well, which has given us the guidelines on how to punish area members. Any SAS member who has committed wrong can certainly be fished out and punished accordingly, according to the law of the land. Under the police duties, we have what is called orderly room. We'll do the orderly room trial. If it warrants dismissal, will be dismissed. If it warrants reduction in rank, it will be reduced. And where it requires that the way and the manner you err, you have to be dismissed and charged to court as well, we do same. Public outcry, as far as I'm concerned, should be censored. I think we need to rigorously censor it to find out what is the cause. Because as far as I am concerned, this agitation may come from criminal gangs. They may not like SARS because SARS are doing everything to ensure that armed robbery, kidnapping, murder, cultism, cattle rustling is not allowed in this country. But any right-thinking man who knows the value of our activities and who knows the efforts we are making and the breakthroughs we are getting will certainly support us. So for me, it is not a call to end SARS. I think what matters is to reform SARS, and reformation is ongoing.
People are having issues with police brutality. People are being kidnapped by people who are meant to protect them. People are being marched to the ATM. You know, I don't think there's anywhere in the world where you have the police marching citizens to the ATM machine to withdraw money from them at gunpoint. You know, so when these things happen, people are traumatized, people are flummoxed, people are confused, they don't know what to do next. And you definitely cannot advise that they begin to look for police station to go and report the police who have just robbed them. Yeah. You know, so based on that, we are now filling in the gap to ensure that there's a place where they can go to.
Today, SARS is in every state command, and according to the founder of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, Simon.
Well, it's time for my take. The lives of every human being is as valuable as your life, whether you're a police officer, an army official, or maybe even a leader. And talking about elections, free, fair, and credible elections are achievable. It's not rocket science. But then, of course, we, the people, need to demand for it and also make it happen. We can stick to our guns and make sure that we have free, fair, credible elections. Like I always say, it starts with you. I am Mary Anna Cohn, and I've had the pleasure of having you on Plus Politics. Enjoy the rest of our programs.